It started with a box of junk from an estate sale. Old books with cracked spines, a chipped mug with a faded logo, a tangle of yellowed extension cords that no longer fit anything modern, and at the very bottom, an answering machine, the kind with two tiny cassette tapes inside, one for outgoing messages, one for incoming. The plastic casing was yellowed with age, the buttons gummy. When pressed, on the back, a peeling label showed a date, 1989, and in faded black marker, a name, H. Latham. The buyer didn't even own a landline. They just thought it looked cool. A retro conversation piece. They set it on a shelf in the living room between a stack of old VHS tapes and a dusty lamp. And then they forgot about it. 2 nights later, they woke to a faint beeping, not loud, just enough to pull them out of a deep sleep. They followed the sound into the living room. The answering machine's red light was blinking. One new message. They laughed under their breath. It wasn't even plugged in. No phone line, no power cord. But when they pressed play, the reels inside began to turn with a slow, mechanical whir. The voice was faint, male, measured. It said their full name. Then, I'm outside. They checked the window. Nothing. The street was empty, washed in the orange glow of a single street lamp. They told themselves it was an old recording. Maybe the machine had some residual charge left in a capacitor. They went back to bed, though it took a long time to fall asleep. The next morning, the light was blinking again. 2 new messages. The first was static. The second was the same voice. This time, kitchen window. They walked into the kitchen. The blinds were open. They were sure they'd closed them the night before. On the glass was a faint smear, like someone had pressed their face against it. That afternoon, they decided to open the machine. Inside, the tapes were old, but intact. The incoming tape was labeled Latham, 1992. They rewound it to the start. Every message was the same voice, different phrases. Don't go outside. It's in the hallway. Don't answer the door. Halfway through the tape, the messages changed. The voice started using their name, not Latham, theirs. And the background noise, faint at first, began to sound like their own house. The creak of their stairs, the hum of their fridge. Once, even the distant bark of the neighbor's dog. They unplugged it, removed the tapes, put everything in a drawer in the spare room. That night, the beeping woke them again. The machine was back on the shelf, the light blinking. One new message. They pressed play. The voice whispered, "Behind you." They spun around. Nothing. When they looked back, the machine was recording. The reels turning, the counter ticking up. But the room was silent, and yet, when they played it back, they heard breathing, not theirs, slow, deliberate, close. The next day, they took it to a friend who repaired old electronics. The friend called that evening, their voice tight. They'd found something strange. The tape wasn't magnetic anymore. It was blank plastic. No way to record anything on it. And yet, when they pressed play, the voice came through, clearer than ever. The friend swore they heard a second voice in the background. A woman whispering numbers that, when written down, matched the buyer's street address. The friend said they didn't want it in their shop. They left it on the buyer's porch in a paper bag. No note. That night, the beeping started again. This time, the display didn't say one new message. It said, "Final message." They pressed play. The voice said, "You've been listening since the first night. You know what comes next." The machine clicked off. The reels stopped, and from the kitchen came the sound of a phone ringing. A phone they didn't own. They followed the sound. On the counter sat a black rotary phone. The cord trailed off the edge. Done. And into nothing. It rang one last time, then stopped. When they turned back toward the living room, the answering machine was gone. But in the dark, on the shelf where it had been, a faint red light was still blinking, and somewhere in the silence, a tape reel began